Let the light in. Let the light shine. Let the light in. Let the light shine through. Let the light in. Let the light shine through you. When you wake up in the morning, well, look inside. Be grateful of the place that you reside. Doesn't matter, it's a...
Hi everyone, Michael Sandler here, best-selling author of Barefoot Running, Barefoot Walking, co-creator of the Mindful Academy and Mindful Running Training Program. Today I have a very special guest with us. His name is Dean Karnazes. He's known as the Ultramarathon Man. Time magazine has named him one of the top 100 most influential people in the world. Men's Fitness has hailed him as one of the fittest men on the planet. An internationally recognized endurance athlete and New York Times best-selling author, Dean has pushed his body and mind to inconceivable limits. Among his many accomplishments, he has run 350 continuous miles, foregoing sleep for 3 nights. He's run across Death Valley in 120-degree temperatures, and he's run a marathon to the South Pole in negative 40 degrees. On 10 different occasions, he's run a 200-mile relay race solo, racing alongside teams of 12. His most recent endeavor, and I'm guessing there are more to come, was running 50 marathons in all 50 U.S. states in 50 consecutive days, finishing with the New York City Marathon, which he ran in 3 hours flat. Thank you so much for being here today with me, Dean.
Well, thank you for having me run by.
I'm really excited to talk with you because actually I just finished your book, Run, and I have so many questions, particularly coming from the mindful aspect of understanding what your mind is going through, what your emotional state is like, so many things that I know our audience wants to understand. But let me dive in here with one that didn't seem to be addressed in your book, which I'm sure you're going to have a fascinating answer to, which is, do you ever get afraid?
Wow, that is an interesting question. And I guess the answer is no, because I thought about the question. I thought, I don't have an answer for that question, and which would I think be an indication of I guess I don't get afraid.
So I noticed that you really like, I don't know if like adversity is the right word. I was reading about Leadville when you didn't quite make it to the finish, and it in a sense you were like, good, this is living. And I'm wondering if you could share with our audience what your feelings are about failure and success and things of that sort.
Well, I'll tell you, probably like a lot of the listeners, if you really think about it, you learn a tremendous amount from your successes. I've learned a lot more, from your failures. You don't learn that much from your successes. Usually when you succeed, you just, you celebrate the moment. You high five, you have a glass of champagne, and, life is good. When you fail, you get very self-reflective, and you tend to analyze, okay, what went wrong here? Why did I fail? What could I have done better? What really transpired and what led to this? And that's, I think, the best opportunity for growth is when you fail. So I celebrate failure. I welcome it. I say, bring it on. Learn from your failures and move on. And people always talk about, like in your introduction, you read about all my successes. A long laundry list of what I've accomplished. There's an equally long laundry list of what I haven't accomplished, and I think that's almost a more fascinating read, because people tend to think of people who succeed as people that gain notoriety as being having this carefree life of just success after success, and the real truth is that that's just not reality.
I love what you're saying. If you don't mind me asking another challenging question, perhaps, but along those lines, what would you say has been the quote-unquote failure, because you're not taking anything as failure, I'm with you on that one, that has taught you the most?
Probably the biggest failures, to be honest, are the ones that any parent faces. And they're the hardest failures. And there's a saying that I love. In school, you get the lesson and then you take the test. in parenting, you take the test and then you get the lesson.
You get schooled.
So that poor first child, yeah. I mean, I feel sorry for every first child, because as they get older, you realize, oh my gosh, what have I done here? So probably the hardest lessons for me are ones that are hard to retrieve, because once you make a mistake with your child, it's hard to go back, and it's a hard lesson to learn, and you get better over time. And I think I would have to say that more so than any of my failures on the race course have been failures and overcoming those failures as a parent.
It's beautiful how you tie your relationship and tie your kids in the book Run. The story about finishing with your daughter at the end of that 10K was just magical. And first, what I'd love to know is what you were thinking at the end of that running race, crossing the finish line with your young daughter.
Oh, I was I wasn't thinking about much because I was crying so much. The thing that so struck me with that run, people say, you're probably thinking, I've run through finish lines with my kids as well, and we kind of know the feeling. But with my daughter, I saw something in her that I'd never seen before. In that, as I describe in the story, at mile 5 of this 10K, which is 6.2 miles. At mile 5, she was really suffering, really struggling. I thought, okay, this is going to be a tough lesson in failure. And I was just about to turn to her and say, Alexandria, I'm so proud of you for having the courage, to have tried, and we can do this another time. And right when I was about to say that, she looked at me and she said, Dad, I'm going to make it. I'm going to do this. And it was this grittiness and this this boldness in this little girl that I had never seen before. So it was a new side of her, and it was shocking to me. I thought, wow, here's something I've never seen in my daughter in 10 years of raising her. And to me, it was just such a profound insight. I was struck by it all, and kind of I was awestruck and captivated, and really given a real gift, both in finishing with her and seeing this new side of her personality.
It's a little bit of you coming out.
Yeah, as much as she tries to push me away, thinking, geez, Dad, I don't ever want to do what you're doing. She inherits somebody, whether she likes it or not. Yeah.
So what is it when you're running, and some of your endurance feats really strike me? I've done some really long things in my own right, but nothing like what you've done. And I'm wondering, what are you thinking about or not thinking about? I mean, obviously a long race, whether it's a 24-hour race or a 6-day race, there's a whole spectrum going on. But where is your head during this?
Your head is in different places, and the one thing I do like about any sort of ultra marathon or any long endurance quest, at least the rules of engagement. The rules are pretty black and white. There's a starting line, and at some point there's a finish line. The distances between the two might be incredibly daunting, but at least what's expected of you. Life can be very ambiguous, right? I mean, we think we're moving in the right direction, and then the finish line shifts. There's changes, but with endurance events, that's just not the case. We know what's expected of us, so we're constantly moving toward achieving our goal. And when you're engaged in something like that, there's a certain singularity of focus. You've got one thing on your mind, and that is making it to the finish line. So almost all of your efforts are concentrated on that particular, on that mission or that goal of reaching the finish line. And that kind of directs a lot of your thoughts. So, you're constantly analyzing your body, your nutritional needs, the way your muscles feel. You might be shifting your gait around to take, to shift the load and take the load off certain muscles that are fatiguing and putting them on other muscles that feel fresh. The other thing that you're doing is you're dealing with a lot of boredom. You're trying to overcome boredom, and let's be honest, if you're out there like I am, where I ran across America one time, and that was 75 days of running, up to 50 miles a day nonstop every single day, and I was out there, 10 to 15 hours per day, and I can get boring, especially when the landscape is stark or drab, or it's cloudy or foggy and you can't see anything around you, and you're just running into a white mist for 12 hours. And a lot of what I enjoy about that boredom is mastering your own mind, mastering yourself, and overcoming that. So there's a whole laundry list of emotions and feelings that go through your mind when you're doing these sort of events. The other thing that I really enjoy about a lot of the time of racing is that you're in the moment, you're in the here and now, you're in the present, instant of time, and rarely do we live our life in the moment, right? I mean, we're always thinking about the future, planning or reflecting on the past, but it's not often we just live in that moment in time. And when I do a lot of these races, I try to get very granular and not think about anything in front of me. I don't think about the finish line. I don't think about how much further I've got to go. All I think about is being the best Dean, that Dean can be in that moment in time. And often that it comes down to just putting one foot in front of the other to the best of my ability, just taking one step and being in present and being now and taking that next step to the best of my ability over and over again. And it's almost like a Zen-like quality.
How did that come about? How did you, for lack of another term, stumble or trip across realizing that you needed to really bring yourself into that present moment? That is what mindfulness is all about. Bring yourself, your awareness, just to the here and now.
Through trial and error, I've got to be honest. Finding out what worked best and what didn't, and where I found my soul and my spirit and kind of my happiness. And I found that in being in the present moment of time. Like I said, I've done a lot of reading on the subject, and it seems to be one of the keys to happiness is just being here and now and being present. And unfortunately, when you run down the streets of America, there aren't many people that are here now or present. I mean, they're kind of wrapped up in their iPhones or conversations or business or kids or this or that, and it's to me that is it's almost a key for unhappiness. It's it makes life kind of a task rather than a joy and a pleasure. So I kind of learned that lesson over many years of running.
And is that what you do define as mastering your mind, that ability to bring it back to the present moment and not, to use kind of a Buddhist term, not go off with the monkey mind in 1,000 directions, or is that another component of this?
No, I think you hit the nail on the head. That's exactly what it is. Mastering your mind is bringing yourself back into the here and now.
So walk me through this. You're running along, blisters are coming up. You're in tremendous amount of pain, or it's a upset stomach, something's not going. I don't even know if I want to use the term right, because they're all just occurrences along the path. So when occurrence is taking place, where does your mind go?
To that occurrence. You still know the goal, and that's to reach the finish line. Mm-hmm. But your mind is on that blister. When you feel pain in your muscles, I mean, most people try to, chant a mantra or think about something else. To me, I think about that pain. I really focus on the pain and what is the root of that pain. Pain is ephemeral, right? I mean, you could be running next to someone at that same pace, and they're chatty and happy and feel nothing, and you're in tremendous pain and suffering. So I try to really focus in on that pain and try to pinpoint what is causing that pain. Why are these sensations arising, and where are they coming from? And the more you do that, the more the pain just kind of dissipates and goes away. So again, putting your mind, on the subject and being in the present is really the key to getting through some of these really, really tough and difficult points.
It's beautiful. That kind of leads itself to a quote I was reading early on in the book, Run, that maybe you can expand on. You said there's a magic in misery.
Well, I think there is. I think that we thought if we had every convenience available to us, if we were able to take away pain, we'd find happiness. And I think what we found is we're so comfortable, we're miserable. There's no struggle left in our life. I mean, we get in our air-conditioned cars, we drive to our air-conditioned offices, we sit at nice desks, we come home to our nice houses. Everything comes easy. And what I've learned and what a lot of other endurance athletes have learned is life is really lived in the struggles. And, and in this present day, let's face it, most of us don't have struggles.
So you're saying we need a mountain or two.
I say we need a mountain or two, or a marathon or an ultramarathon or an Ironman. And I think that's why a lot of people do it, is because they find that in that struggle, they feel most alive.
That's beautiful. That is, I think, why a lot of people turn to running, and particularly your books are so motivational. I don't usually take an author and say, I love your work, I love your work, I love your work, but you can't read what you go through in a run. Almost seems like you're going through the entire human experience, birth to death and back again, in, let's say, 100 miles. And it gets people wanting to get off of the couch and say, let's get living again. And
I think it's true, and I think there's a kindred spirit we endurance athletes all share, because we've felt these feelings. We've gone through those emotions, and I've just put it on paper, and people enjoy reading about it, and especially people that haven't done it before, they start to see, wow, there's some magic here in these experiences. There's more than just running. I mean, a lot of people, think about running as boring, right? They want to, put on their headset and try to listen to some music and just get through this run. They do it for reasons like, weight loss or, health or whatever. And very few people, I think, run just for the joy of running itself, just for the very act of running. And I never seem to, I never want to lose sight of the fact that I just really love to run. I've been doing it for a long time, and I'm no longer a young man, but I'll never lose that love of just the act of running.
So what would you tell somebody who's gotten inspired? They've read your book, they've listened to this right here, and they want to go out and start running. I know your best friend, he jumped into it with a whole bunch of miles to start, and you were real proud of him for that. But what would you tell the average person? They've gotten so stoked they're going to get off the couch and go. What are your words of wisdom?
Well, I always tell someone to start from the ground up. So invest in a good pair of shoes. And to do that, I would say go to one of the local running specialty stores in your area. So not like a big box retailer, not like a Dick's Sports or a Big Five. Go to a place like Fleet Feet, one of the smaller shops that just specializes in running, and talk with a knowledgeable salesperson about a good pair of shoes for you. And they'll typically have you try, what they call wear test a number of shoes, so you can run down the street in a number of different types of shoes to see which one seems to fit your gait and your foot best, and then invest in these shoes. And that'll accomplish two things. One, you'll be a lot more comfortable when you start your journey, and two, if you get lazy, you're going to feel really guilty when you've got this $100 pair of shoes sitting in your closet idle.
I just spent $100.
Yeah. And then I would say, look inside and say, and answer, what kind of person are you? Are you extroverted and you like running in groups of people, or are you more the introverted type that just prefers to run by yourself? And then follow that path. So some people really like, being part of a running club. And they like that motivation because they know, on Monday, Wednesday, and Friday at 8 a.m., I got to meet, at this park or at this store to do our training run. Other people don't like that. They like to just kind of run on their own time. So do it, what inherently feels best to you. And then, if you're if you like challenges, I would say sign up for an event. 4 or 6 months down the road. That might just be a 5K or a 10K. It could be a half marathon, but put something on the calendar. Pay your entry fee, get a number, and then I would say to even increase the odds of you being motivated. Send an email blast,
to
your friends and family, announcing, "Hey, I've got this great goal."
Oh no!
And even take it one step further. Find a charitable cause that you feel near and dear about, and ask them to support it.
Mm-hmm.
So do some fundraising. Yeah, and then when you come home from work and you're tired and you feel like sitting on the couch and having a beer and some pizza, now you've got some people that are relying upon you and a deadline that's looming, and that'll get you out the door real fast.
So go for the run first, then the beer and pizza. So, okay, let's talk about some big challenges. And you're talking about, say that you're going to do something. The one challenge out of all of the challenges you've done, that seems to me the most. In a way, it seems the most seductive and the most daunting. Seductive because of what you have to go through with your mind. The most daunting because of what you have to go through with the mind, which is the treadmill, the 48-hour endurance. I don't even know if event is the right word. How did you do that?
Yeah, people probably heard what you said and they thought, did I hear that right? This guy ran for 48 continuous hours on a treadmill.
And if I understand right, in front of almost a glass bubble on national TV with anywhere from 0 to everyone watching.
Yep, and I ran as fast as I could I ran 212 miles, and I literally did not move a foot forward.
Oh my God!
Yeah, and I mean, talk about having to master your mind. That was a test of mindfulness like I'll never experience again, and it was amazing to look back on that and think, how did I do that? Because when I think about what I did, it was quite extraordinary. In that, you just, when you're on a treadmill, as you know, there's no margin for error. I mean, you've got about 2 feet in either direction that you can kind of meander, or else you're going to step off the side and get spit out the back like a sack of potatoes. So I had to stay in that that kind of zone, that geographical or topographical zone for 48 hours, making sure that I wasn't losing it too much and stepping over to the side. And, that's just not easy when you're, running for that duration and you haven't slept for that long. So, and plus, like you said, all of the distractions that were going on around me that entire time, it was, it was surreal, and it was almost like a dream state at points, and just glad I somehow made it through that.
Were you using a mind? I mean, this is like an astronaut going into the unknown. I mean, to be able to take that, you're literally on a razor's edge, and from what I understand, the belt was even getting loose and wobbly, and we naturally, as we get going longer and longer, we tend to get a little wobbly too. What were you doing to keep that mind there?
It was just, again, the focus. I mean, mind over miles, right? It was just, just that discipline, that sheer discipline and willpower to always be aware. And it was really a test because, like you said, you couldn't go for 15 seconds without being present in the here and now. And you just had to pay attention for 48 straight hours. There was no way around it. I mean, that was just what it came down to.
It's impressive, and it's. How do people start? How would you get people to start? Is it focusing on their breath? What would you do to give them some advice to getting into that moment, even if only for a minute or two?
The thing with new runners that I see is that a lot of them start off just running very, very quickly, and then fatiguing and having to walk, and then thinking, man, I can't even run for 2 minutes straight. How am I ever going to run something like a 10K that's going to take me over an hour? And so what I say, instead of looking at your GPS and tracking your mileage, just say, right now I'm going to run for 5 minutes without stopping. And that usually shifts your paradigm, so you start thinking about your pace and your cadence, and you think, if I'm going to go for 5 minutes, I can't just sprint out of the gate because I won't be able to keep running. I'm going to tire and have to walk. And when people do that, they tend to downshift a bit and kind of get a little more reflective and say, how am I going to get through 5 minutes? And I think that's really a crucial lesson for newbie runners to learn.
It's breaking it down into small pieces. I love it. Changing topics to something that's just a personal fascination from your book. Somebody had told you a secret to something, and I'm curious what that is. It was for post-holing through snow and ice, I'm assuming wearing running shorts, without getting your legs all chewed up. I know it's a weird one, but I've been there. Like, what's the secret?
There's a couple of secrets. One thing is taking really tight, short steps. Mm-hmm. So not taking big, bold steps, but increasing your foot turnover, as they say, your cadence, mm-hmm. and really using your arms to try to uplift your body and tread lightly on the surface. The other thing is there's a material called cordura, which is a thick, heavy
backpack material.
I shouldn't say it's heavy. It's thick and it's protective and it's waterproof. And they make these long gaiters out of cordura that come up to your knee. And as far as shredding your calves and your lower leg, having those cordura gaiters on is really the secret.
I love it. I think that's a good one to invest in under those conditions. You go long distances. You tend to thrive on these events. What is your driving force? What keeps you going?
I love it. It's passion, and I love the challenge. I love the game, and I don't think I'll ever tire on it because I'm passionate about it. So I'm driven by my love for the sport and my passion for exploration, physical and mental exploration. That being said, if I get up one morning and I don't like running and I don't like endurance sports, and it becomes a chore and a task rather than a passion, I won't do it. Because I know I won't be good at something that you just don't love. So thankfully, I've been able to kind of align my life's work with my passion, and it's it feels like my purpose is squarely aligned with what I do, and it feels good right now.
I love it. Do you have any big events coming up?
How long does this interview last?
Oh my!
Yeah, no. It's pretty much an endless stream of things I got coming up, and the biggest thing I've got coming up is I'm trying to run a marathon in every country of the world in a 1 year's time frame.
Awesome.
So I'm trying to put together a global expedition, and I'm working with the UN and the State Department to try to get all the necessary passports and permits to get into every country, and it's been difficult. It's taken me over 5 years of planning, and I still feel like I was hoping to do it in 2016, but now I'm thinking it might be 2017.
Okay. What's been your favorite place to run so far?
Again, how long
you've only run a few. Okay.
Yeah. I've run on all 7 continents, twice now. So, the list is long. I think, Patagonia is amazing. Yep. Namibia in West Africa is incredible. The Atacama Desert in Chile is breathtaking. The Sahara, when we're on the subject of deserts, the Dolomites, the Italian Alps. There's so many beautiful and exotic places to run, and even here where I live in the San Francisco Bay Area, Marin County and Mount Tamalpais.
Yes.
Those are some of the most pristine trails in the world. and we're only 15 miles north of San Francisco. So I always say it's best in your own backyard, and I have to agree on that one.
I like that. Question about, well, here, kind of a weird one. Are you sitting or standing right now?
I never sit, so I'll just leave it at that. Yeah, no, of course I'm standing.
So
yeah, no, my whole life is standing. I never sit down.
Go talk to me about the philosophy of this, if you could, because I remember doing an interview a few years ago, and back when our book Barefoot Running had just come out. I think it was BBC, and they're like, "Aren't you worried about running barefoot or something?" And I'm like, "No, the most dangerous thing you can do is a desk chair." So,
oh, you're a man after my heart. Yeah.
so
no, I agree. And in fact, it's funny. When we were hunters and gatherers,
yep.
We walked or ran an average of 18 miles a day every day. And I doubt there's 0.01% of the population travels 18 miles a day in this modern era. So to me, standing up and walking is a great way to get the mileage up in between the running.
Makes perfect sense. So for people who are stuck with a 9-to-5 job, what do you recommend they do?
Stand-up desk, and those are becoming very, very popular, and a lot of businesses offer those now. So stand-up desks are great. You're not just standing, but you're bouncing around on your feet. I'm constantly bouncing around on my toes, and people say, you should say to me, "Aren't you exhausted after standing from 9 to 5?" And the reality is, you feel fresh and energized at the end of the day, where when I was sitting down in front of a computer screen, I used to feel completely exhausted and fatigued at the end of the day. So a lot of people are amazed when they go to a stand-up desk, how great they feel at the end of the day.
Awesome. And I'm thinking of, I don't know if you know him or not, Steven Sashen, the founder of Zero Shoes. And he's gone one step further, and he has a stand-up desk treadmill. So
yes, I've seen those. Yeah, it's an interesting concept. I don't, if that's what it takes, then do it. I prescribe to just bouncing around on your feet and on your toes.
Yep.
Yeah, and I also say, hold meetings while walking.
Absolutely.
Yeah, Aristotle used to do that back, in ancient Greek times, and they found that they learned a lot more and absorbed a lot more when they were moving around versus, sitting down.
Well, it makes sense, because I mean, you and I are probably always thinking about what an ancient man or caveman used to do, and his best thinking came foraging, running for food, running from being food, and mapping things out, which is all learning on the go rather than learning sitting in the cave on a stone.
Yeah, that's so right. Yep.
So, what? If I've read correctly, and this was as of last year, is it still the case that you have never had a running injury?
I shouldn't say that, because I'll walk outside and step on the curb.
Okay, let's put it differently.
Leg,
let's do it differently then. What's been your secret, if you have one?
Well, when you say running injury, I would say that overuse injury, because I suffered just 2 weeks ago. I suffered a quote unquote running injury. I mean, bonehead maneuver. I was on a trail run during a 50-mile race, and I, during a very flat and level section, not mountainous and technical at all.
When you weren't being the most present, maybe.
Yeah, I wasn't being present, and I tripped on I don't know what I tripped on, but I landed on a rock right on my side, and I ended up with a hematoma the size of a football. I still finished the race, though.
Of course.
Darn it. Damn it, I wasn't going to let that go. Yeah, so, that was, I guess, a running-related injury. I'm fine now, 2 weeks later. Mm-hmm. But as far as overuse injuries, I think it's a combination of things. I mean, I look at myself as a complete athlete. I kind of take a 360-degree approach to being the best, athlete that I can be, and that includes, a clean diet, includes not sitting down like you just mentioned. It includes a lot of cross-training. I think too many runners just run, and that can be a recipe for injury. so I do a lot of cross training to strengthen both my legs and my upper body and my core, as well as thankfully I'm blessed with pretty good biomechanics. Like I've had my alignment analyzed, and I pretty much run exactly as a runner should. Kind of that midfoot landing. I've always had a shorter, tighter cadence and that kind of forward body lean, and that kind of accentuated arm swing.
Yep.
Which is kind of in fashion these days. I've always had that just naturally, and and when it comes to biomechanics, I mean, so much of that is inherited, right? I mean, you kind of get what comes with the package. They say that the best thing you can do as a long distance runner is choose your parents well. So
I would argue though that being present, you've been able to fine tune. You were saying earlier something that was fascinating to me, which makes total sense. Which is you're in a long distance event. You could be in any event, and you learn to shift your gait slightly according to which muscles are working too hard and which muscles are relaxed or fresh. And that sounds to me like you're really doing a full body scan there.
Yeah, and I also think you're tuning into letting your body, be its body. Where I think a lot of people try to override that. They're kind of coached on, hey, step like this or stride like that. And I think that's counterintuitive. I think we need to be present and tune into our body and listen to what our body's telling us and adjust accordingly. And, you do that and I do that. And I know a lot of other runners that do that, but I think most people don't.
Do you think that comes from, I know you talked about in your book, running on the beach barefoot in your younger days, or where did that sense of awareness of letting the body do its thing come from? Because we can tell somebody, you and I can tell somebody, go out and just do what your body tells you to do, and honestly, it could be a train wreck.
Yeah, I'm not. You're more of a coach, and you've actually, done a lot of work with people where I haven't. I've just kind of through anecdotal conversations with people learned. But I think to me it was a lot of running on different surfaces and running different distances and different paces. So I learned, how my body responded on something like running on sand versus running on snow versus running on, rocky, uneven trail versus running on, just flat street. And through a variety of, different surfaces, just a variety of sort of test scenarios, I kind of learned, how my body responds, as well as various durations. So, how our gait and our stride might look at the beginning of a marathon is very different than at, mile 20 and mile 26. Yeah. I mean, just look at the race photos to see that. I mean, you look at race photos of people and, the early photos of the early miles, their gait is strong and, their stride is true. And then, coming through the finish line, they might be waddling like a penguin, supinating and doing everything wrong. But it's kind of what their body has forced them to do.
I think that also comes from you are definitely, I think we're both on the same page here. You're one at looking at your fuel levels and what you've put into the bank and not withdrawing too much early on. And what you're describing sounds like the typical scenario of how people tend to run an endurance race, which is they withdraw everything in the bank right at the beginning. And,
yeah, that can be the case, and it's it takes no small amount of discipline to overcome that, because let's face it, when the gun goes off, there's a lot of enthusiasm, a lot of adrenaline in the crowd, and it's hard not to get swept up in that. And it's amazing to me when I run a marathon how many people are kind of like, even at a pace where I'm not going to win a big marathon, but people at mile 8, 9, they say, hey, oh, there's Dean Karnazes. I'm gonna outkick this guy. You kind of start getting into it with someone, at mile 10 or 11, and they might sprint up ahead, and you're thinking, no, I'm not going to let that guy pass me. And then you think, well, hold it. This is mile 11, and inevitably, by mile 17 or 18, they're on the road, on the side of the course.
Yep.
So it does take an amount of discipline.
And you have story after story about, starting a little bit slow, letting people go, and all of a sudden, wait a second, you've reeled them all in, to use your language, which and there's nobody left in front of you. So
don't you love it when that happens? Yeah.
Well, okay. There's a quote. Let me see if I can pull it up here, because it was. Let me be honest. You see all this stuff about Dean Karnazes and Karno this, Karno that, Karno, and you're wondering, is there a lot of ego in this guy? And what I read, and I'm seeing if I have this quote here, is you're not running to beat anybody. You're running for your own game, and that's very, very different, and very special. So I'm not even sure where I'm going with this, except that I was so impressed that okay, it's fun to be first, but you're running for the goal of the run. Am I correct?
Yeah, I never want to lose sense of that, and it's you versus you, right? I think a lot of people mischaracterize me, especially people that don't know me, as someone that I'm not. But I'm really I'm a very simple guy. I mean, I'm just a runner, like other runners. And when I go out and do these runs, I'm not trying to beat anyone at all. I'm trying to beat myself. Ultimately, the biggest confrontation is with self, is with you. And that's what I love about our sport. It's not racing other people. I mean, that involves the ego. And to me, that's kind of ugly. And what I try to do is suppress my ego and be present and just be at one and try to overcome myself. And, once you lose that magic, I think, is when you start to burn out, especially on racing.
It's beautiful. It's beautiful. And I think it's a missing, I don't know if missing element's the right term, but it's a challenge that people get into racing and they think of racing as racing. I've got to beat that person next to me, and it goes from being in that beautiful present moment, as you're describing, to being something completely different, which usually doesn't end with a positive experience, not over the long run anyway.
I think it ends with burnout for a lot of people, and I think they lose sight of the joy and the passion that the very act of running and endurance sports brings inherently, and to me that's kind of tragic. To me it turns something that is really, as we've been discussing, a battle against yourself into a battle against other people, almost like a war. And to me that's kind of an ugly element, and it's kind of reinforced by a lot of the media. I mean, we have, publications like, Running Times and Runner's World that, continually characterize the best runner as the fastest runner. And I don't know if the best runner is always the fastest runner. I mean, being best and being fastest are two different things. I think, the fastest runner is the fastest runner. And I think I always tell kids this: the best runner is the one who's enjoying themselves the most.
Woohoo!
Yeah.
Thank you. Those titles where it's pushing through the pain is actually great. It can be, to me, it's twisted. I know you're there as well. It can be a lot of fun because you're observing the pain, and it becomes I don't know if pleasurable is the right experience, but it's just information coming in. But when you read the cover of the magazine of push through the pain, gut it out, break yourself, it just doesn't. It seems like they're missing the fun.
I couldn't agree more. And I think, thankfully, I think more runners are starting to realize that. Racing is one thing, mm-hmm. and there's just, I always say there's a difference between racing and running, and let's never lose sight of that.
So, what is your definition of running then?
Running to me is just the act of running, and again, the pure joy of just running. So you don't have to set a clock, you don't have to wear a GPS. It's just the very primordial and a very common human trait that we all share, and that is just putting one foot in front of the other at a somewhat accelerated rate. and that's running. It's simple. That's what it is. Racing is complicated. There's starting guns. There's timing chips. There's other people involved. There's trophies, and that's racing. So they are two very different and distinct things. I enjoy them both, but I don't ever want to only become a racer, because I think only becoming a racer takes away from the pure passion of being a runner.
I love it. As I like to tell my wife when I go out for a run, a walk, whatever it is, I tell her I'm just going around the block. I never know how big that block will be, and your block is much bigger than that. But you're just going around the block and having fun. What can you tell me about this quote? This one really touched me. I have found my church, and it is at the end of a long trail on a distant mountaintop. It is here that I feel most at peace, entirely content and whole.
Did I write that? That's beautiful. That's poetic. How'd I come
Oh
up
wait,
with that?
wrong book.
Yeah, I must have been running. Yeah, I think I just again put into words what a lot of runners feel, and to be able to do that is just, I've got more time on my hands than other runners, because I go out running, and what do? I just think about quotes and things to say. But I think every runner can relate to what I just said. And I think there is a magic in running, and it is something that's universally felt amongst runners of all ages, all genders, all skin colors, all races and religions, and to me that's the thing about running. It inherently unites people. It brings us together. There are so many things in this world that divide us, right? That tear us apart. And here's something we all share in common. It's commonality between all humans, and to me, there's great power in that.
I'm thinking, based on that, of you're running on the treadmill, and this Regis and Kathy Lee 48-hour treadmill run, and somebody jumps up and is running next to you, and they're talking, and you say, "Can we just run?" And it sounds like you get into this magical silence together.
There's something about just locking strides with someone, and just sharing breaths together, and kind of feeling that mutual heart pump. It brings people together in a spiritual sort of way. And I think talking and trying to clock mileage and keep on pace and so forth it disrupts a lot of that, and it makes it something different. So yeah, the gentleman, I think I should call him more a boy. A guy I greatly admire. It was just so much better when he, frankly, when he shut his mouth and we just ran together. And I think he felt that as well.
Just enjoying the silence. I love it. You've overcome some amazing. You've been plopped in the middle of nowhere. You've been in incredibly challenging circumstances, and you've always come through in your own way. You talk about life as a series of obstacles and setbacks, and living is overcome them. That's kind of your philosophy, but how do you face obstacles and challenges, and what do you tell somebody who's out there going, yeah, well, that's him, he's a superstar, but how do I overcome these things?
Fail.
Oh no.
Yeah, try is the thing. It's failure never stops people. Mm-hmm. It's the fear of failure that stops people.
Ooh.
And most people live. I think George Lucas has a great quote. He says most people live in a cage with the door wide open.
Oh,
so
no.
Step out of that cage. We all do this to ourselves, right? We live in prisons that are self-constructed, and how do you get out of that prison? You be true to yourself. You try to be fearless. You try not to worry about failure, and I think that's the best way to expand and grow.
So how would you describe then possible and impossible, both through yourself and somebody who you're saying go out and do it?
I love
these simple ones, but you're doing these things, and so many people aren't doing it for the exact reason, for the fear, for the I've been told I can't do it, or the monkey mind is telling me I can't do it. And I think I can't is a disease.
I think people, I think people really need to look internally and say, what has meaning to me?
Mm-hmm.
What gives me a sense of purpose? And when you start pursuing something that has meaning and purpose to you, you will not give up. You will face setbacks, you will face hurdles, but you will remain steadfast. And I've seen this over and over in people, regardless of what that purpose is. I mean, I always tell people, if you love basket weaving, then be the best darn basket weaver on the planet.
Awesome.
I mean, throw your heart and soul and your passion into it, and you will make a go as a basket weaver. I promise you that. And I'll never forget what I said to my wife. I'm going to try to support our family as a runner. And she looked at me and she said, "I wonder why it's taken you so long." So she was very very encouraging. And I thought, okay, now how am I going to do this? I mean, I know that if I win every ultramarathon out there, I'll end up with a lot of belt buckles because everyone gets the same trophy. But the kids won't have food on the table. So I thought, you've got to get creative. And believe me, if I can make it as an ultra marathoner, if I can somehow carve out a life for myself, you can make a go of doing anything you're passionate about.
Awesome. And that was interesting to read in the book as well, is that it sounds like it's taken a I don't know, patchwork, a quilt of all sorts of different things. You think, oh, best-selling author, they've got it made. But as you and I both know, it's a little bit more creative than that, and it sounds like you have done it your way.
Yeah, I mean, it's people think, well, you just write a book, right, and you're and that's it, you're done. I mean, you kind of retire at that point. And there's a lot of hard work that goes into the back end of writing a book. I mean, they say the book tour, as you probably know, the book tour is the punishment for writing the book.
Oh.
So you got to write the book, you got to go promote the book, which means kind of sleepless nights on the road. So there's a lot of hard work that goes into it. And my wife says to me, "I've never seen anyone work as hard as you. I mean, you are constantly working." And the truth of the matter is, I love what I do. I don't feel like it's work. I'm so impassioned and I so love what I do that I could do it all day long, every day, as I do, and I never feel tired. I feel energized by it.
Thank you. Inspiring words for me, and I think for everyone listening. Want to wrap up in just a few minutes. Give me your 30-second take on diet.
To me, so when it comes to diet, I've gone full circle. I'll tell people that you can change your diet, and I am a perfect example. I mean, I was kind of known as the guy who ordered pizzas on the run, right?
Yes.
And I used to consume mounds of junk food, just thinking, get in calories any way you can, and the body will sort things out. Well, I've come full circle, and I've gone from eating all that kind of, processed, refined foods to eating no processed and refined foods.
Excellent.
Now I kind of use the filter of Neanderthal man, or the Paleo man, and saying, what could Neanderthal man eat? And basically, it has to come from the earth, right? It has to be something he could pick from a tree, or a root he could dig up, and or a fish he could catch, or some lean meat he could chase down. My diet's primarily raw as well. I mean, he didn't have saucepans and elaborate ovens and ways to cook food, so I try not to cook any of my food, and I just feel so much better that way. I mean, people say, how do you eat like that? It's got to be flavorless, and the truth of the matter is, if you get good food, the food itself tastes extraordinary, and you don't need to hide it with thick sauces and garnishes, and that's kind of the diet that I prescribe to people.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Awesome.
I know I'm preaching to the converted with you, but
well, but it's also, I want to be fast for you here, but I've had to come full circle myself, and as somebody who's been a raw vegan for many years, I actually had to start incorporating some animal protein and animal fat into my diet, and what the ability of you, of me, of so many other people to actually step back and say, I'm not this, I'm not that, and I'm willing to change. That's hard, and when it comes to diet, it's powerful.
well, and like you, I was, I tried to go vegan, and it didn't work for me. And I know other vegans that said the same thing, that I've got to incorporate meat into my diet. Their diets are still really clean,
Yes.
and these are lean meats they bring in, but people feel like, and I also eat yogurt. I eat Greek style yogurt, so it's full fat, it's no sugar added, and it's all natural. But I just find that a little bit of yogurt seems to really work well for me.
Do you do ghee as well?
I don't actually. I don't. I try to keep my diet as simple as possible.
Yep.
And just kind of include the things that work. And I don't do a whole lot of experimentation because I'm pretty happy where things are at. If I felt like there was some kink in the armament, I would experiment a bit more. But I've done a lot of experimentation, and kind of where I've come to is the other thing with me is I live thankfully in Northern California, so I have access to a lot of cold water fish sources like wild Pacific salmon or mackerel or sardines. So I eat a lot of cold water fish, and I really believe in the omega-3s.
Yes.
And high quality protein that I get through those sources.
Awesome. Thank you so much for sharing on diet. I think that's incredibly helpful for people out there. It's a understatement. So you're a great writer. You have brought the experience home for people. And that's a very, very special thing. So they go along for the ride with you. And I had so much fun reading this. And even for me, who does like to run like crazy, it made me, I'm reading this book going, I just want to go out and go for a run.
Well, thank you, brother. I appreciate that.
So last question, what gives you the greatest sense of inner peace?
Well, I'm 100% Greek, and I guess I'll use some ancient words, and from the Oracle at Delphi.
Yep.
And that is know thyself. So I mean that know thyself, and the other thing the Oracle said is be thyself. So Shakespeare said it later, to thine own self be true. And I think if you're true to yourself, you have inner happiness and inner peace.
Thank you, Dean. That's awesome. Thank you so much. For everybody out there, thank you for joining us. This is Michael Sandler saying, be mindful, be true to yourself, have fun, and run free. Thank you, Dean.
And don't eat anything processed.
Yes.
Damn it.
Oh, and don't read anything processed, and maybe you don't want to be on a treadmill for 48 hours straight.
The place that you reside doesn't matter, it's a mansion or a rubbish bin. It doesn't matter to me or even to him. All we have is this moment to be grateful for. So free yourself so you can have more of the love and light in our hearts. Oh yeah, that's a great place to start.